Hello and welcome to my second C++ vector tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm just going to be showing you some extra stuff you can do with vectors. So let's get right into it. The first thing that we want to do is we just want to create our vector. So I'm actually going to be creating functions to do this. So to do a function in C++, if you don't already know, you have to reference it up here first before you actually create it. So you want to say void create vec, and then we can pass in a parameter here, and I'll say a vector of integers that is by reference. The ampersand means by reference in C++. And then the next void we're going to do is showVec, and then this one has to be a constant vector of integers that is also by reference. It's constant, so that way it does not modify this vector at all. It just takes the same one and just can display it. And then the next void we want to do is multvec, and this again has to be constant vector, so we're not changing the vector when we're using it, and then, well, we will be changing it, but just not in the same way. So multvec. And so actually in int main here, we can just cout enter values, -1 to stop here. So we'll just enter the values, and then we also, is there another thing we want to do here, or can we just, I think we could just start. So then down here we want to create, actually, hold on, we do want to create our vector. So I'll just say vector of integers uvec. It's just pretty simple. So then down here we can void create vec, and we have to pass in the same values. So vector integer by ref, and then here we can take in user input. So we'll say int u inputs cin u input, and then say while u input is not equal to -1, we want to add things to our vector. So we want to say, oh whoops, I forgot to define nuvec here. This is just whatever we want. I'll just call it nuvec so that you can just understand that it's a new vector. So then we'll say new vec dot push back u input, and then we just want to cin u input again and again until they type in -1. Okay, so pretty easy. Then up here we can go ahead and create our uvec here, and so there. Next thing we want to do is we want to void our showVec, and then here we have to create our constant vector of integers with the ampersand, and then we'll also call this nuvec. You don't have to call it nuvec, but I like to call it that. And then here we can use our for loop. So for unsigned int I equal to 0. Then we want to say I runs until, or I is less than nuvec dot size, and then I plus plus. So then what do we want to do? We just want to cout our new vec I, and then we'll also cout a plus or a space, and then we'll just also, before we do this, cout vector. So yeah, then we just want to showVec uvec. So I'm just going to run this to make sure that it all works. So I'll enter like 10, 5, 2, and 3, and then, oh, then I forgot -1 at the end. So then 10, 5, 2, and 3. Okay, so it did that. That all works and stuff. So then the next thing we want to do is our multiply vector function. So we can say void multvec. This will be a constant vector of integers with the ampersand for by reference, and this will also be a new vector. And so how you find, or how you just multiply it by something, is we can actually take in user input. So we'll say cout by what number, because we're actually going to put this under a yes or no kind of block. I'll show you in a second here. it'll all make sense in a second here. So we'll say multiply by what number, and then we want to int u input, and then cin u input, and then we'll say for unsigned int I equal to 0, I will be, or while I is less than new vec dot size I plus plus, and then we want to just see out, or we can actually create another int here, int total, total equal to 0, and then we'll say total plus equals, or should we, actually no, we don't want to find that. How about we just find that each individual one times whatever number that is. So then we'll just say new vec I, or we have to see, oh my god, I can type today. We're going to see out our new vec I times whatever u input was, and then we'll just add a space here. So yeah, we just want to see out times whatever this was. And then under here, the next thing we can do is say see out multiply question mark, and then we'll say yes or no, and then have them enter yes or no here. And then we'll just create a string variable called your yes or, and then we'll say cin your, and then I'll say if your is equal to yes, then we want to multvec our uvec, but if it's not, then we'll just see out completed, and then this should break it, or pause it, okay, or get rid of it. So we'll say enter values, so we'll just do 5, 10, 15, and 20, and then we have that -1 to end it, and then it'll say multiply yes or no. We'll say yes by what number. Let's multiply this all by 2, and then it gets 10, 20, 30, and 40. So yeah, this is just some basic stuff that you can, or just other stuff you can do with vectors, showing how you can incorporate it into functions. So that's about it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.